going to demonstrate how to make these drip tulips for the next hour. We have a lot to go over, so let's get started. So the first thing I want to show you is that I'm gessoing on these pieces of paper, and I've put a few layers on these before, and this is just kind of the last putting on of gesso. And what you don't see me doing is putting it on in different directions. So first I'll go horizontally and then I'll do vertically, and this is something you do when you're priming a canvas. It's almost like you're copying the linen texture of the canvas itself underneath, but it actually also helps you get into those ridges and cover it better and have a smoother texture overall. If you keep going in the same direction, you actually enhance a lot of those brush strokes, and right now I just don't want to do that. So this is the paper I'm using right here. This is Canson watercolor. It's one of my favorite things to play with. I even print on this with my printer sometimes. It is 140-pound watercolor paper. It's a cold press. I think it says that somewhere on here. There it is down there. Cold press is the middle texture for all of that, and it's one of my favorite to work on and probably one of the most common ones you can find. So the next thing I want to show you is how I clipped that watercolor paper that's been gessoed to these canvas boards. And you'll see here, these are 9x12 canvas panels that I have here. I split those papers into 3, so I've got one that's a 9x12 paper, and I've marked out where the 8x10 is. I do want to overlap this a little bit, and some of the paper, the pencil won't show through when I'm done, but this gives me a guideline of where I need to fill that whole section. I taped a little bit of it, and I used binder clips for the middle, so I don't use more tape. This is harsh tape, it's very sticky. But because I don't care about the edge of this, it's not going to be near my painting and it might tear up some of that gesso. I'm not that worried about this stuff as much as I would be about watercolor paper. So I don't use this particular tape for my watercolor paper. So I've taped that on the edges to keep it down, because even with gesso it can get wobbly. The wonderful, amazing guy who showed this technique that inspired me used very hard board, thicker, probably even canvas panel, honestly, to do this technique so it doesn't warp when it's behind your mat board. But I just like this watercolor paper so much. Oh, he used 300-pound watercolor paper. That's what it was. He loves that stuff so much. Robert Burridge. I'll put a link to his channel below. I'm one of my newest favorite YouTube artists, and I hope you'll enjoy him too. So this is a take on his technique of dripping trees. But I've also got 2 smaller sizes here. This is 6x9 finally. So those are the panels that we'll be working on and dripping. There's also multiple ones, so I can dry them, tip it, and we can experiment if one of them doesn't turn out. So let me show you the materials we're going to be going to use. I'm going to use one of my student watercolor palettes where I've got these wells. I might need my big flat one to put paint into so I can make more puddles, but I'm going to be using my student watercolor palette to handle those puddles. Alright, paint colors I have chosen, partially sort of at random. White. Haha, go figure. Titanium white. I love my Liquitex basics. This is not sponsored by anybody but me. I also use a lot of golden and also whatever the heck I can find for cheap. But for this one, we're going to use Liquitex on Up. There's also a Daler-Rowney, which you can find that a lot at Walmart actually, and this is a lot of everywhere else. Phthalo Blue we've got right here. Cadmium yellow medium hue. That means it's a fake and doesn't actually have cadmium in it. We've got Phthalo Green. It's got the big long word for it. This is the same color family as the blue. And then one of my favorites, Quinaquadone Magenta. I will use this to tone canvases. I'm going to combine these two to make purples probably. I've got to still figure out what color tulips I'm going to make on these. But we've got options for stems. This white will opacify any of this stuff right here. So I laid out my painted palette, and I realized there's a few more materials I wanted to go over just so we have all the materials up at the front and you know everything we're working with. Here's the palette. This is what I'm going to scoop out of to put in this little guy for wells, so I have got more paint to pull from. But I've also got this little thing. I'm going to call this a mop brush. You see how it's so very soft? This is designed to hold liquid, and that's what I want. You don't have to have this kind of brush at all. Whatever holds water, it can drop it on there. You could use an eyedropper, you could use your finger. You could pour it on there for all we care, but I just picked this one because it will hold a lot of water in there. To dripping. I'm also going to use a toothbrush. So there's the toothbrush. Pencil. Was that? Oh. Spray bottles. These are my best friend when it comes to acrylic painting, especially outside. This one is full of water, and then this one is something that Robert Burridge actually recommended in his video. This is rubbing alcohol. He recommended using a mister where you've got those splatters, like all the spitty one. You don't want to find mist, and that alcohol is going to push away the acrylic paint and leave little cells, kind of like that paint pouring. I haven't tried this yet, this drip method, so I'm curious on what this is going to do. So we've got some of that. I labeled them because you'll notice they're both clear liquids. Really don't want to mix those up, especially when we need to wet down the gesso first. So the first thing we're going to do with this and all the other ones is put a background tone on this, and it will be a little dry when we're done. This is a brown Taklon for anyone who cares. It's great for watercolor and acrylic because of reasons. I'm just going all over this thing, grabbing more water out of my little plastic container, and you're seeing a lot of those gesso brush strokes come underneath this. I am fine with that. This is all about messy, wonderful texture, so I don't really care. In his video, he rubbed a lot of this in, so it's still slightly damp when we started the dripping technique. So we'll see how that goes. I'm actually going to tip this up over here and let it dry a little bit. Texture is fine. I just want a little background something. And even that color might have been too dark for what I want. So I'm going to start adding yellow to this pile right here. I think you can see this orange coming through right here. Something a little lighter. I love yellow backgrounds. Oh, let's spray that a little bit. And get some of this on here. Yellow, because we've got such bright greens we're going to be working with, having something warmer in the background will be to our favor. And as you can see, this takes highly trained brush skills to slap that stuff on there because it doesn't matter. It really doesn't at this point. You can't really see these brush strokes anyway with how much water we're using on this gesso, and most of this is all going to be covered up at the end. So I'm fine with that. I'm perfectly fine with that. I'm going to put that aside. I may even use the cooking show method of suddenly it's done and dry. And I actually mean that a little more literally than you probably expect with art. I will put this stuff in my oven. There's nothing on here that's going to explode into flames. Although I have a gas oven. Don't do this with oils. I will put it on the lowest I possibly can and stick this in there for maybe even 5 minutes, and it's done. So that actually helps me speed up some things when I'm experimenting, or for videos like this, when I didn't plan ahead in time and I want to make the video now. And so I'll have to pop these in and then come back to this. So let's get some nice orange stuff on there. You can see it hitting the tape. That's what the tape is for. It will make a little edge. I don't really care about this background right here. You can kind of see that I've already gessoed this from a previous class, and I reused those boards. So these are great hard surfaces. If you've got a watercolor that you're working on, you can tape it to canvas panel like this, and you can have a bunch of them going on at once instead of taping it directly to your drafting table or a fancy piece of wood or whatever you've got. So these are standard sizes. Alright, I'm back here. What I need to do is puddle some of these. I need some more watery paint right here. Now, the major puddles we're doing right here are going to be the tulips, and I really want to try dripping the stems from the opposite direction back down, especially when you've got these leaves like that, and we're going to actually tilt these a little bit. So, oh heck, let's go with some pink tulips. We've already got a little pink going on right here. Maybe it's slightly light purple to give us a little bit of a different, woo, that will not be a light purple. That will not be light. This is purple. We can mix white in with this to get an opaque drip. That is totally doable. And I like orange for this too. Orange is also really pretty for this drip method. And I've been doing a lot of orange purple for some reason. Can you see that? Oh, it's dull. It's brown. Well. Oh well. I can put some on top. That's the fun with this. I love the texture it creates, but I also don't have to feel bound to it if I want to continue painting something else on top. I'm actually not going to do a green part of this. I want to do it upside down. I've never done that before, so you get to come along with me as we experiment. My new favorite quote that I've always had as my favorite but never knew it existed is by Adam Savage, that the only difference between messing around or screwing around and science is writing it down. I am keeping in mind a general composition. This right here are going to be all my tulips. They're all up top like this. Even Robert Burridge did this part. He did a drippy mess right there. And you'll see that background is kind of dark for this, but that's going to be okay because I say so, basically. We're going to have purples and pinks, and I'm grabbing from my bigger palette over here when my puddle's not big enough. I dip some water in there. You want a bead of water. When you can still see puddle of water and it's not the texture underneath, that's called a bead. You can use those for washes, but right now we're going to use this to drip. Yes, I am working as quickly as I can because I want that bead there to drip. And I'm going to catch it with my other little camera right here. That tries turned off by itself. So we've got 2 sections for this to do. Alright, let's get some wonderful drip action going on here. You might see some of it from that camera above. Oh, come on. Managing both cameras. So you've got your drip, you've got your splash, and tip. We're going to let that thing tip down and just do its thing and drip down like that. And you've got stems. I might even tip it over a little bit so your stems have some life. The next one, I might vary up my colors on the top right here a little bit more. There you can see a little bit better. I got a little close to see that beautiful drip action. And you can actually keep going, even with it still dripping right now. If you see something, a problem solving thing you want to do in here, they're blending together and I'm okay with this. That's partially what this whole thing is about. And making messes and taking away what you don't like at the end. I'm noticing a lot of the stems coming together right here. Maybe I'll like this at the end, maybe I won't. But you know that we're experimenting and we're having fun and we're writing it down. This counts as writing it down right here as you blob the stuff. These are actually going to be really fun, I think. I almost want those more opaque, but I might do that as my second drip. Doing more than one of these is also half the secret to this. What happens if I do that opaque now? What happens when? It's kind of cool, actually. I'm going to do a bit more than that right here. Grab some yellow and white. Might be able to see that up top if I remember to edit that. If not, it's off screen. I'll get the hang of this. Don't worry. More opaque, more yellow. You see me mixing that right there. And keeping some idea of this. This is going to be it's like party tulips. I like it. It's like party tulips. I'm going to leave that one right there. Alright, so we're here for the next one. Here's the palette, which you can see, same kind of thing we're doing right here. I am doing 2 cameras at once, so please bear with me because it's time sensitive for where you see it dropping and then wanting to see the front part of it. So I've got to hurry over and click my other camera, which doesn't record as long. So bear with me, it's worth it, I think. If you have any better ideas for how to film that, please let me know in the comments below. If you're a YouTuber yourself, or just a filmmaker, I mean, There's videos on places besides YouTube. I hate to break it to YouTube. There's more places. I might experiment with the same colors, honestly. That's what I have here. That's partially why I have a limited palette right here. It's fun to play with, and you can do different variations of it. So, pinkish ones, purplish ones. This technique is great for adding layers of darkness into the foreground, like coming closer and closer towards you. It's great for backlit things. You could almost say it gets too easy for backlit things and not other sense of perspective or other sense of lighting. I think you have to play with that. This is the easiest method to do, is something that's backlit, so the light coming from behind, because your dark stuff goes on top much more easily, especially with watercolor or watercolor technique, just like this one, even if it isn't technically watercolor. That's okay. Yes, I do this a lot. I put down a fresh coat of paper here just for you. You are so special. You should see the drip paper underneath that. Or maybe you shouldn't. Maybe I should hide it from you forever. It's a little scary. Does this even show up? Or will it drip into itself when I'm done? We will find out. Let's get these other ones on here. Oh, look, green. Cool. Whatever. Go with the flow. That's the point. That's the point of these, and it's okay. Alright, with this one, I'm going to add a little bit of that amazing toothbrush action. I wet it down a little bit, and I'm actually going to do that after we start the drip. So, we've got our puddles, and here we go. Whee! Go on, drip, drip, drip. Alright, stay there, camera. You do the drip part. I'm going to splatter some pink in there. So you'll see on the palette cam, the waterier this is, the bigger the splashes are going to be. It's maybe that it seems counterintuitive. It did to me at first. More watery, the bigger splashes you're going to get. And half of these are going to go away when we're done anyway. But it creates a wonderful extra texture, and it can get another color into the drip. Oh yeah, now we're playing down here. So this one, it's got fewer larger tulips. I'll zoom out manually right there and make you seasick. I think that one's going to be fun. There's going to be larger, sharper shapes to bring out when we're done. So there's that little guy. It's quick. Once you tip that thing, it's quick, and we're going to do another one after it's cooked. So there's that little camera ready to go. There's my good old palette cam with the blue, which we haven't done much with yet. I'm waiting for that with some of the green. I might have to clean up my palette to get a green puddle section, but let's do that big one real quick. We'll give the top cam an overview of that second little one that we did. I probably could have shrunk that in a little bit, but that's okay. I might do another drip on top and then bring out some of the ones in that safe zone that I want. I may not actually have to put these in the oven right now. Alright, here's the big one. So I like to do little ones at first to practice different techniques. I've got a lot of little things going on right here. This one definitely needs a second drip. But what I do like and don't like about this one to do to my big one. Little ones are great for practice. I struggle with keeping up the energy after doing a ton of little ones for the big one, but I think that comes with practice. I don't like this one as much, honestly. I like how this yellow is lighter, and so you've got a difference with the different tulips in the back. I'm not a giant fan of this one yet, but I think once we get a little bit of those stems involved in the leaves, and then really bring out some focal point flowers, I'll like it better. But if I like something too quickly, I don't want to continue. I want to keep it the way it is, and that's not good for actually finishing paintings. So what I like about this one, there are larger, simple shapes. I can kind of see where my tulips are. Maybe the splattering helped this one more, and I need to do it to the other one as well. So that's something I want to keep. And I also noticed my colors are a little more clear, which is partially because the other one's on a darker pink. doing small ones as a warm-up don't count unless you actually go over it and see what you like about it and kind of critique it as you go, or you're just messing around and experimenting again, which is what we're doing anyway. You'll notice I'm doing all these in a horizontal format. I didn't plan that way. I thought I was gonna, you know, do vertical here and there, and then I didn't, so we didn't. And I might do that for a different tulips, but right now we're just going with that. That's another choice you can make, but I'm not gonna right now. I'm putting my tulips down. Alright, so we're actually mixing a bit of a purple right here. My other camera turned off, but that's okay. Come on, turn on. Just turn on for me right now. Just be ready. Be ready for the drip. Splatter. What we've got is, oh, what is the word? Of course, while I'm filming, I can't actually think of the word right now of this color combination that I'm using, where you've got orange, red, and purple are all together analogous? Is that the one? Of course, I can't think of that word right now. Simple color theory while I'm filming. I'll probably stick in the editing later on. Go figure. So they're neighbors on the color wheel, and they're going to be really pretty. The green I put on top of this is going to be the complementary of this red. This is more of a pink, but it's going to be the opposite of that one. Oh, look at that. These yellows are not showing up on that background very well, and it's kind of cool. We'll see if it still wants to drip or anything. I am really procrastinating. Well, hopefully some of those will still drip. I'm trying to get a brighter yellow that will stand out a little bit in the background. We can still pull a tulip from the background, but I want to know where it is and have a little brighter color to play with. So, secondary camera ready and recording. Oh, I'm going to pull it back a little bit for that dripping action. You'll see my messy desk. Here we go. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Cool. And myself and probably a lot of you are thinking, what the heck is that? Ugh. Yeah, me too. That's why we're doing this. Alright, so secondary cam, you go right there. Again, apologize for some of the manual zooming. I don't have much space. And I gotta pull it back so you can see things. So I'm going, while it's even sitting right here, I'm going to put more tulipy shapes in because they're larger blobs. It's happy with what we're doing. We're fine. And we're probably going to need a secondary drip anyway. And I think that secondary drip is where we're going to be using that alcohol spray. But I do like this one and how these are blending. So the tulips don't have to be by themselves. It doesn't have to be like a cookie cutter cutout. That's not what we're doing here. That's a different technique, which is just as fun. But for these little guys, we want them to blend. That's actually something to watch in composition, is whole shapes and how those values blend into each other when they're next to each other. That's no-tan, I believe, is a technique that actually pays attention more to that. It's not about the object, but about the values that create the composition. I need to research more about it, but also that's not what this video is about. This is about dripping stuff. And one last bit before we go, I want this stem to dip down here a little bit, not into the yellow, although it still looks cool. That one might be on top of that, but maybe I don't want it to be. But it looks so pretty. I like that one right there. You see how it's got the edge in it? Just so cool. Okay. There's that one. Secondary cam, thank you very much. We'll see you later. This one we'll set aside to drip. So this first one, we're going to do another drip. I'm going to do one more layer of drip on these down and sparingly, and then one more drip up of leaves, and then we'll go on with the next section. So we've got this little guy. I really like how these yellows are pointing out on this one. these opaque yellows. So I've got some of that cadmium stuff in here. If you can see it a little bit. It's kind of dull because I got some of the blue in there somehow. I'm going to get some white to opacify it and have it help cover that pink underneath it. Orange, oh look, it's orange now. Let's see what happens. That's the whole point. There we go. That's covering nicely. And that one's too even, so we'll dip that one up there. Darker pink, which will turn into an orange once it does the drippy thing. We're a little too even about it, but also not with those other purples popping through, so I'm okay with that. Is there any way to make that orange brighter? Because I dripped too much of that purple in there, so it's not happy. Purple and yellow are opposites in the color wheel. Together they make mud. But together it dulls down, and sometimes you just don't want that. Splap. Just be my luck that it hits the lens sometime. Alright, secondary camera. Let's get ready for some dripping action for this side. And tip, because we want to get along with this fun part. I'll just leave you in the corner right here as we go on to some other stuff. So hold tight there, secondary camera. Thank you. Don't make you seasick. And I'm going to try some of the alcohol on here. There's two different ways of painting with alcohol. This is one of them. You can figure out the other one. Splooch. Ooh, yeah. Oh gosh, that is cool. Do you see that kind of pushing away some of that texture? That's pretty neat. And supposedly it's going to evaporate away and leave that section. Let's hope that it dries around it. It's probably just a matter of timing. We'll see if I got it right or not. Yes, it looks like a mess right now. Cool. That's kind of the point of this whole thing. So I'm going to be careful and put that to the side. I'm going to hypothesize right now that I sprayed it with alcohol too soon after dripping, and that the wet acrylic is too wet around it and will just fill in those alcohol puddles anyway. That's my biggest guess. Oh well, and I didn't do the paintbrush splatter on that thing either. Oh no! Purple splatter! Ah, that's good. There's that. Here's the second one that I want another splatter. This one looks like it's having fun with more of the pinks. So we're going to bring another focal point of a pink or darker purple back with this one. And you see on my palette here, that's water. I did spray it with alcohol, didn't I? We'll see on my palette. I like that pink. Well, I guess that's going to be okay. That works. We'll just drip it on there. Kind of how it wants anyway, right? And make that one pinker and tip. And you get an overview shot of this one dripping down. How's that for extra fanciness? See a glob of paint here. Tip more. It will go down. We're fine. It's kind of cool. This one's getting a little unruly, but that's okay. Go. Go. That will teach you. Okay. Analogous color combinations for the drip right now, because I'm learning how to control the colors for not analogous, where you add all the other stuff. I say that, and we're totally going to add that green soon. This one, do we need to add anything else? These yellows are kind of fun. I kind of want to bring out some of those since they're technically in the foreground. This one is just pretty. Oh, I add an extra purple drip to that one. This little guy needs a drip. This little, it's tricky because the ones farther up are supposed to be a little farther back as well. And so you don't want the stems coming in front like this one, but this one just looks cool. I like it. That's my technical reason why I'm gonna keep it. Because I can. Those are excuses you cannot use in an art class usually. You have to have a reason for it. So, I love this light bit right here. I'm only going to drip it right there. There's another tulip in front right here with pink. We'll bring that out. This purple's looking good. And you've got a pink purple right there. And maybe one side and some insides on that one. And maybe I can grab some more pink from my big palette over here. This might dull down a little bit. But this one's got a cool thing right there. And a little bit right here, if I can manage it, to bring out the other side of this purple tulip. I think you can see that. Pink. That one is okay. And then we'll have fun with it after. Alright. Again, secondary camera. Get ready for some drip action. Get that one going. And tip. It's a little slower on the down take this time. That's okay. Enjoy that on the drip cam. Come on, drip cam. Oh yeah. There we go. I'm going to set up the drip cam to do some stuff. That's the clicking action on the drip cam. Not the greatest on colors. I want to see what alcohol does to this one. I like it too much, so I need to mess it up a little bit. There we go. And I might do that with the yellow at the end because it's going to get darker with more leaves. Is it going to mess it up if we do the alcohol now? Is it too wet? I don't know. Splat. Splat. Oh, look at that thing. Cool. It did stuff. It did texture-y stuff. One reason I wanted to do this with tulips is that they are such a simple egg shape. I oversimplify my tulips. And so doing this kind of texture thing and letting them do their own thing with the drip helps me loosen up and focus on more of the whole thing and the shapes that they play together than just a simple tulip egg shape. They're still little egg shapes, but these are great for the drips. Thank you, drip cam. Now this will be fun keeping all those drip cams in sequence. I'm going to put this aside on a garbage can to think. And then we're coming back to this one. I think it might be time for these to pop into the oven for a little bit because that last drip was really hit them hard, that secondary drip. So I'm going to put these in the oven for a little bit before we work on those stems coming back up. So we've got stems going opposite direction that we're going to do. I don't want them to go all the way across, most of them, and then we'll fill in what's not a tulip for the opposite drip, and we're going to play with the one I don't like first. So in case I don't mess up and don't like what I'm doing, it doesn't matter too much because I can practice on the other one. Alright, I'm going to use my water, spruce up my paint a little bit. I'm going to start lighter in the background with some of these. I've already mixed up some puddles of my green, and especially with this dark purple, some of this green might get more muddy. It's going to be a little transparent and do that, but that's what we're playing with this for anyway. So this is going to be fun on how this drips. I don't want quite as much water. I don't want it to go as far. It probably will. Whatever. I can also tip it back if I don't want it to continue. And I do want it to have a little bit of a curve to it. Tap in this. Whoop, too much curve. That's a lot of wind. That's a windy tulip field right there. And we'll just make the rest of it go by itself. Cool. I wish there was a way to do smaller drips on some of these. Again, that's something I might just have to play with as we go. I don't want it to go all the way whoop, like that. Maybe. Would it be good to do the grass beforehand? Now that's a question. That's the other thing. Am I doing this in the right order? Do we need to do some of this beforehand and then put opaque tulips in the front? Now there's a thought I didn't think to try. And that's why you write this stuff down. That's okay. Big old tip right there, make you seasick. There we go. Come on, go, go, go. I'm gonna give it a spray, help it go down a little bit. I kind of like that. I also want it to tip a little bit as we're going, and we probably could have gotten it really watery and just kind of tilted that whole thing as it goes. So, that's interesting. You've got some really straight stems in that one. Again, that's why I did this on this one that I don't completely like to begin with. This is acrylic, so I can start doing what I want with it. So that, well, I can try it definitely on the ones I do like, and this one's not quite so precious, which you don't want them quite so precious anyway. Anyway, yes, it still looks like a mess. We are going to get to the stage where we take away the things that don't look like tulips, and we might even come back in with some of these and then go back over, you know, with what we like about the tulips, completely obliterating all of that drip work we just did. But art is like a conversation with itself. What does it want to be? What doesn't it like? I love this stuff going on down here. That's something we might keep. How it's a glaze and even picking up some of that gesso texture underneath. I like that. It's just controlling what we like about it, which is all part of the experimentation. So this one's, I'm not giving up hope on it yet because I know we can get rid of a lot of these shapes on here. Because of the length of the video, I might do that to only my favorite one, or the favorite two, kind of a process of elimination of my favorites, and leave the other ones alone, just for the sake of time. And finishing up what we have with this one, and that's okay. That's the thing with acrylics or any kind of drip technique that has a lot of spontaneity to it. You, instead of tweaking and perfecting and blending with these, you often get better at it by doing a lot of them, not by trying to be perfect at them. So some people might work on an oil painting for years and months and poke, 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 poke. And they've got this one gorgeous painting. With some watercolor painters that work like this, or acrylic, I mean this is acrylic, you get a lot, mass, just volumes and volumes of this stuff, and some of them turn out great, some of them not so much. I'm going to spray this beforehand to see how far we get this thing, and we'll do a continuous kind of... Ha! Those are all going the same direction because of physics! That's kind of fun. Alright, big loud noise right there. Should have warned you for that one. Sorry about that. I like that direction it's going. If I put another one on right now, is that going to hurt it? Or will that actually not go in a different direction? I kind of don't want to hurt it, and at the same time, let's go for it. So it's still that bright green. I've mixed together a lot of these greens right here. I've got that darker one. Some of these can go in the background very nicely by themselves. This green, you've noticed it's opaque and it's going on top of those tulips. I've mixed quite a bit of white and then yellow with that to brighten it up on the outside. So there's a little bit more, and we're going to direct that drip a little bit. I don't want those straight. Tapping it, I think, helps that bead go down. There's a bead right there, and I want it to stay there. So you can see that puddle of water. I don't want it to go any farther. I don't want all of these to go off the edge up here. And I'm still in a place where I can fix the ones I don't want off the edge. I need this dry though. Like I said, this is a mop. When I brush it on the side right here, I'm getting that water out. You can even see that. This is where it's a vacuum, or also mop. And I can suck some of that up. See how it's keeping its own shape? I don't usually use brushes like that. They're designed for very liquidy things, and you have no push for thick acrylic paint, but for liquids, it's great. And I'm sucking some of the paint back up here and there. Yeah, I like that. I controlled the drip, which sounds like an oxymoron with this technique. I didn't want it to go straight because tulip leaves aren't usually that straight with this. I'm liking this big one. And we're going to have it feed into itself a little bit more. Let's make it a little thicker. That's allowed to tweak some of these when you like them. This one will probably be covered up by a lot of the matte at the end, and I'm realizing I need more of this opaque green stuff right here. I'll just get some water in there and some white and a lot of this yellow. I want to keep that nice and bright in the foreground. I don't want to mess up that, picking up the gesso texture, honestly. I like that. But we need for it to have a little thicker of leaves in the front, like this gorgeous thing right here. It's still wet enough, it should blend into itself with some of these. Some of these I've mixed in with that same blue we made the purples with, and that will also help tie it in nicely, mixing those same colors together. That's a lot of blue. Okay, fine. Be that way, have a lot of blue. Fine. That's kind of cool though. But since I did that, it's going to stick out if I don't put more blue somewhere else in here. It's going to stick out a bit too much. Yeah, that will teach it. You weren't expecting that one, were you? It looks like a mess and it's gorgeous. I also want to keep this the way it is. I like it. I feel like I went a little backwards with this one of what I liked about it. But at this, like getting rid of some of these tools, it's messy. It got a little messier than I wanted, but I think we're going to be fine with this one because the next step of this takes away what you don't like. It's a very opaque, it's a negative painting technique almost. Kind of. Works on negative. So, bleh. I'll stop saying that word and continue on the big ones since I have an idea of what I like with these. This is really warpy. It's not completely dry yet, but right now we're just going to go with it because it's another technique if you do it on purpose. I'm really liking this opaque, yellowy leaves right here, and I might do a lot more with that. So there's more white and yellow and more gloppy water for this thing. It might be good for the background for some lighter leaves. And I can also work with this while it's half tipped if I really wanted to. Because who says I can't? It's just all about the end result, really, of why you don't want to. More drips. I'm working kind of fast, so I don't think about it too hard yet. And also I want those beads to stay there. I want to make sure we've got a bead of water to push around. Yeah. Oh, look at that beautiful spring green. Now there's a big old tulip festival around me. Hopefully I'll get into that art show. And so yeah, I'm going to be focusing on tulips. Maybe not on YouTube, but that's one reason I'm like, I need to get and play with some more tulips because people love that tulip stuff, and some of these will be turned into postcards for that show. Some of them might be sold as originals if they don't find a home before that. Ooh, I'm liking that. Let's see if we still like it after this. Tip. I can't see where it's dripping right now. You can? A little bit? I didn't tip it. Oh no. I did not tip it to give it a... Ah! It's a little straight. Oh. Those stems are a little straight. I still like it. We're going to have to help it out here a little bit. It's not impossible. Aha. Okay, it's not bad. It's not ruined. The stems are a lot straighter than I want them to be, but that's okay. I still like the colors the way they are, and there's a lot to get rid of, but I just really wanted to tip it right there, and I didn't. So I'm going to mix up a slightly darker green now, and I'm going to make sure it's awfully darn watery that I can tip it in a different direction. So yeah, you might, see I go, you might see me doing a lot of tulip themed things. Tulip themed things. I might have a tulip shop on my website. Themed flower stuff. Poppies are coming up. I just love these simple shaped flowers. This is a nice stem. It'd be nice to follow that shaped stem up a little bit, but we'll see what we get. There's good blobby shapes for you. We'll even start it up here. Start it up there a little bit. I don't want that to hurt that tulip, but it might be sacrificed to the paint gods for the sake of composition. A lot of things are sacrificed to the paint gods for the sake of composition. Alrighty, I won't be able to see this And we're going to tip in a direction a little bit. Some of this followed the already wet stems that I had. That's fine. And if anything, that helps give those ones that were already there a bit of direction and not straight up. That's a little better. I think you can see that now that we've done those other ones. There you go, wiping off that mop again. Like this one, I like that tulip. I want you to stay with me. That one's fine. That one's just... This one's got a little bit of a bad tangency going on. I think that's part of the problem. When something's already dripped, it creates a path of least resistance being coated with paint already. And so the paint wants to buddy up to that other paint because of surface tension. I'm probably just talking out of my butt right here, but I think that's why we're getting a lot of what I'd call bad tangencies. You don't want it to be right up next to that unless it's on purpose. So I need to overlap some of that a little bit. You see that happening down here. That one's okay. This one is kind of all over, and we probably want to leave it that way. Let's open that one up a little bit so it looks like it's on purpose. I like this one, kind of playing peekaboo in the shadows. I'd like to make this stem stand out because that one's really in the foreground, as is that one and that one. And this is where we're going to add some opposites here. So I just added the pink to that green. These are opposites, and it's going to make a really nice dark purple because the green is so stinking blue. It's picking up more of the blue than the opposite color. Yeah, there we go. Pull some of these into the foreground while it's still wet so it still blends in a little bit. I'm liking this one. It's very green. I still wish I'd tipped it, but we've got some more energy back into it, and it's going to be really fun to take away what's not a tulip or leaf on here and put a little bit back in where we want it. I don't want to have all my stuff dark at the bottom here. It's so easy to keep going and dropping and playing, and that's half the problem because you need to stop. I need to stop. I'm talking to myself. It's easy to do too much. So yeah, there's the again. Sorry, I'm catching those. Bob Burridge, the guy that inspired me to do this, he did way too much of everything. But he knew what he was doing even though he's playing around with too much. I love watching that and learning how he controlled doing too much of one thing. And so I'm looking forward to doing the technique and watching more of his stuff. So I'm definitely inspired with that. I might brighten some of these up, but you'll see how it goes when we take away everything else. So this one needs to dry a little bit. It's nice and dry in here. I don't think I need to put them in the oven again. This one's dry enough that I can play with it, but I do need to switch my palettes out. We need more opaque paint for this. Ooh, blue. I got some blue in there. More opaque paint and a stiffer brush for this. And I don't mean the toothbrush either. We need something that we can control more than just puts things down. So I probably use this for gouache. This is another nice, really soft Taklon. It's softer. I don't want to use that one. I probably use that for gouache, and I don't want to ruin my precious. Same for that one. I should just look in the right bin over here. He uses a giant brush for doing this, but he was also demonstrating on bigger canvases and stuff. And then there's the other toothbrush sitting in the water over here. Where's my big flat one so we can get in between those. Yeah, this works. Those tulip shapes like that. So use a giant brush for this one. The other one I used because it picked up water, but because we're working with such abstract shapes, the smaller the brush you get, the more likely you're going to want to do details. So this is where we're going to get a big old brush in, and I get to pick a background color. Because of the pinks and purples on here, I really do like background yellows for some reason. Let's try that with this one, and I think that will really pop against this pink. This is a really dull yellow I've got right here, but it is the same. That's because of the green and the other stuff that's just around it that muddied it. But it is the same yellow that made this orange, and I think that will help it. So we just start taking away what's not the tulip we want in the background. It's awesome to leave some of this pink poking through. That's going to be very important. But you see me going through those stems right here. This brush might be too big for what I'm trying to do, but maybe that's the point. It's supposed to get me all confused with this. Tulip here, that's nothing right there. So I'll brush that out. We've got a stem kind of going on. This one's a tulip, but we need a stem popping through. And you know, some of these might just not work until I go over it again and again. And again, this is my painting I didn't like as much, so we'll see if I can make something of it. It's an experiment. Some of these might be failures, some of them might not be. I might have to go over some of them again with the tulips. Like those purple tulips back there did not stick. They did not stay as tulips, and that's okay. There's a stem there. There's a stem there I want to keep. You can kind of see some of that tulip, that orangey tulip in the background. This stem might have to go away. That one kind of just muddied, so we'll get rid of that area. Muddied as in the shape didn't stay a tulip, or the greenery didn't stay. I don't like how that crossed right there, but that's the way it is. Oh well. And we'll traipse down there with more of that. I'm just making up words now as I try to focus on this thing. I think you're seeing some tulips come through. More yellow. There's a big stem. I'm probably thinking these too hard. He used this technique with trees. It was gorgeous, and I need to study up more on all those things. There's a tulipy shape. But I thought this blobby drip area would also be really good for tulips. Did I try it before this video? No. Why would I do that? It's an experiment, and so you can watch me fail. Honestly, a lot of YouTube videos where they know the end result and it's going to be a success, they've done so many times already. So they've practiced this, and they've probably done a lot of failures that they didn't want to show. Well, why not? If you don't like some of these, this is all part of the art process too, is showing what doesn't work. Fortunately, we've got other things we can practice on with this one, so I don't think we're going to have complete failure with these, but maybe there's a lot more little sky holes and background holes on here that needs more time than I want to put to this one to bring it out properly. I can still totally see some tulips, but this technique might need another go over, especially for this one when I had a smaller, muddier little, more, what's the right word? The tulips weren't as easily defined, and so it's harder to go around them. That's part of the whole process as well, but I've got something to work with here. I don't know if I'll come back to that one or not. I think I might actually switch to a smaller brush for this next one because I see smaller holes with this. I don't think this drip is going to get in the way. We're going to switch to this flat right here. I still like that yellow background. I feel like blue might really pop out more on this orange though. I don't want to ruin this gorgeous grip. Bleh, this gorgeous drip down here because I love these colors just as they are. That's the hard part with this. I like it the way it is. But we do need to fill in some of that background to get rid of some of it. So let's, do we do a blue? Maybe a little bit of both so we can get some sky on the top coming through a little bit. And then, oh, that's on the tape still, isn't it? We'll move down to some green down here so you get the sense of more leaves and stems. See, that's okay right there, and because I'm using the same green that I used to drip up, it will look like it's just stems in the background. Alright, I'm liking that. I don't compete too much in the background. It's nice and bright. Some of those splatters, meant to stay on the tulips. We'll see how that goes, and that's okay. This is where opaque acrylic is nice because you can go over some of these little spots better. That's the whole point of doing this with acrylic. Probably could do it with oil. Probably. Watercolor, maybe, but not this opaque part, of course. That would turn it to gouache and other things. The nice thing about acrylic when you do this is that it's going to dry on other layers, so you can drip on top of it and not bother the layer below it. That's one of the biggest reasons this is great for acrylic. Alright, get around there. Oh yeah, get that corner out right there. You just see my knuckle right there, I'm sure. Go around this little guy, bringing out some tulipy blobby shapes. I think you're seeing some of this through, and a lot of this is imagination. We're making this stuff up. I didn't draw many of these shapes on I mean, there's stems on purpose, obviously. This is not a stem. That's not connected to anything. So we'll get that little guy out of there, and that. So you're simplifying these shapes a lot at the end. That's going to make a tangency at top. So I'm going to get rid of that. These purples could have popped out more as purple. Hairball. We're just going to make sure they're separate from each other right there. Bright greens. Another thing that he mentioned when he was doing this is that he had a spot in the background that was brighter than the other spots. So you like lighter, physically lighter, so it creates that backlit look with his trees. I'm liking where this is going, and we'll see if it works. It's very abstract, and I think keeping that in mind helps me a little bit. I like this one back here, and I don't. We're gonna push that tulip head down a little bit. Whatever. And I want that to be a separate tulip back there, so we're gonna need this thing. It's coming along. That's an orange tulip. That purple tulip is just not working for me. Bye-bye. It goes away. Less is more with this, so maybe I needed to make even stronger, simple tulip shapes on top. It's quite possible. That's what this is all about. There's some more blue right here. Do we need this greener down here? Does it want to be greener? And then give it a lighter sky on top to make those things pop. There's so many things we can do with this. Like right here we will. This thing needs to still be green. We've lost this one a little bit, and we can put that back in. Just like that. Alright, there we go. So there's got a tulip right here. We've got a pink tulip with a little bit of a stem happening on the outside. Again, that purple one's just kind of disappearing. Now it's right in here that we have to make this pop out a little bit with that green. I want to keep some of that orange stem and make that one go. Darker stem, you kind of want it for what's going on up here, but you've got plenty that it's sticking with. There we go. Yeah, I'm seeing some of that. It's very abstract right here, but I'm liking it. I think the hard part for me right now is being okay with it staying this abstract for tulips. I like where this one is going. I probably want to poke at it and make the shapes a little too refined and rendered, and that's the danger with this, is you want to keep on poking and poking and poking and rendering it into something refined, and you lose all these gorgeous little drippy things. That's half the danger of this. See, I could lose so much of that drippy texture if I'm not careful. But I also want to enhance some of this the way it is. And it's kind of hard to talk while I'm doing this part because I want to focus. I find that I can't talk to my husband on the phone or anything if I'm painting. It takes a different conversational part of your brain. We're like, what does this part of the painting want? It's talking to me! It doesn't, it's okay. But it can take that language portion of your brain, or concentration. How about just concentration to do this? I'm still liking this one. There's a lot of things I would do to it. And because this is the first time I've tried tulips en masse, there's probably more controlled drips I would have done to bring some of this out. This is just like working rough drafts as we go. There's so many things I want to do differently next time. Paint more! That it's hard to like, well, I'm going to continue. It's hard to continue. It's like, well, I'm going to trash this and do this all over again. There's a quilt-like quality to this. I don't know what it is because there's no quiltiness to it, but there is a quilt-like quality to this a little bit. I wonder if we can get a really watery, I'll use this too, really watery white blue. It might have to be a light blue. Ah, it is not light. Oh gosh. See, I'm making the mistake of adding white to the blue, and that's the opposite you want to do with Phthalo Blue. Is there a way we can knock down some of those tulips in the background to give us some more depth? Like this one right here might help. Purple. I'd rather give it a wash to knock it back. Maybe something like this, because that paint's really opaque right there. I'd rather have more mushiness. And I don't want to ruin some of the puddles that it gave, but I think that did help a little bit. Control the chaos of those tulips. There's more I could do, more I want to do, but it's not, oh, ah, there. Very purpley right there. We'll let that one be happy. That one, it's very orangey right there, and I want to do something about it, but I'm not sure what. Is this one big tulip? Because it needs to come out more over here, if it is. And that kind of gives it a nice focal point too. I think I want to move on to the next one and play around, because if I do more, I might regret it on this one right now. We'll see where it goes. As you can tell, I'm learning to juggle all these different cameras and the timing of them. Some of them record longer than others. And I did make the risk of trying to shoot all that one time with working on all three of these at once with that spot. So that is my fault. I'm sorry you couldn't see some of this, but again, it was still a bit repetitive with what I was doing with the other two. I just feel more successful at what this one is doing right here. So we'll finish up a little bit of that blue. I noticed when the camera decided to wake up from sleep, like, wait, when did I not press play? Or when did it stop recording? Because I've got time for that little guy. So this might be a longer video. I like this one. I like how abstract it is in some of the orange, and honestly, we were almost done anyway. There's so much more we could play around with this little thing. Oh, we'll just get rid of that thing, because we can. That's the two braid of blue. Don't want to do that, but I do want to darken that section, and we can use a bit of purpley green to help us do that. Bluish purpley green, that works. Bluish, bluish. Wipe it off over there because we can. And a lot of these are kind of muddy, but I like it. I'm not sure if I'd go over this with ink to help it out, because I feel like if we render too much from this point, it's going to ruin the gorgeousness that's already there, and it's abstract. It is more abstract, and that's the whole point of playing around with this one. That green thing is going nowhere. Should I turn it into a stem for the orange one? I don't know. And matting it makes all the difference, but I'm really liking where that is going. I could tighten up some of these tulips, like that guy, but because they've got that green thing, it makes it harder to tighten that one up. Let's make more of a tulip shape with this. Yeah, that works. That one up. Let's give that one a rounder bit to it. This one kind of cuts off with this stem, so we can smudge some of that. There we go. This one needs to be rounder, and we also lost the stem down here again, so we're just going to decide. And sometimes, even if the perspective is off with those deciding or doesn't make sense, we can put it back in first of all, but also it's the confidence of this is the shape you're seeing that is going to really push that. Like this little guy right here, I could see a smaller tulip in the background, but we need to make that choice right here, and that will help. I'm loving it. I think seeing this in a matte is really going to make this pop as tulips, and I actually want to give this a splattering with the green real quick too. Add that extra texture. Woo! Okay, that's plenty texture. That's plenty. I'm locking this one the way it is. We'll see what happens with this little guy. So that's the big one right there. And I might touch up some of the other ones just a little bit or not. But this is just a fun, easy way of making a really abstract version of tulips. You can see how this technique can be really versatile for any kind of blob, stem, things, and you can use it for all sorts of things besides just trees and tulips. I like how I did the opposite effect and tipped backwards up into it and then also down, and that's a cool variation, especially with tipping it or even putting it at an angle for landscapes. So I'm going to bake these. I might stick this one in a matte, maybe one of the other ones touch up. Thank you so much for following along with this stuff. You'll find links for all the things I was talking about, maybe lists of materials and where you can find prints or things of this if you're an art lover but maybe not an art maker. And definitely check out Bob Burridge's video. He is an awesome, hilarious guy. So thanks for watching and keep on arting. So here are the final products of all of that dripping and pushing, flowing back and forth, conversation and paint. Can you tell which one has the purple background? And I'm actually liking it more after all that we're done. And a lot of it has to do with composition. Now, when I put these in the matte, it cut off parts that I should have stayed inside that safe zone, and I didn't. So I don't like them in the mattes I chose for them. But so as you can see, as a nice big abstract, they kind of have a nice bouquet quality. I have to look up that word. I've never actually tried to pronounce it. It's where everything's fuzzy and those little dots. It's abstract. And so here's the one we did with the yellow background. But those are the two little studies. Here's the big one, which I love inside of its matte. I'm loving this big old abstract quality, and I hope you enjoy making this yourself with the tips I've taught and playing around with that technique. Thank you so much for watching. Hope to do more tutorials and class videos in the future.